sourdough making is not rocket science. Anybody can do it. It's so simple, and it doesn't have to be absolutely exact every time. I have been experimenting with all kinds of different measurements, different styles, taking it outside, putting it in the refrigerator to let it rise. It turns out good every time. And I think I've gotten it down to exactly the right science for me. So let's get started. My starter, I've had it on hand, for quite a while, and I actually had it in the refrigerator a couple of days ago because I was out of town, and it'll store fine in the refrigerator. I put it out to room temperature, and it actually started activating really quickly. I went ahead and fed it, and we are talking about 12 hours later, and I have this. Look at that. You can see all kinds of bubbles in here. It is really, really fascinating. I just think it's the coolest thing ever. I know it's active, but I'm not sure it's quite active enough. So what I'm going to do is a test. So I'm just getting a little bit of water, and I am going to spoon a little bit of this yeast out and see if it floats. And it floats. Yes. Okay, we're ready. I'm going to put the bowl on the scale, turn it on. I'm going to be putting about 200 grams. Okay. I used to use 130 grams, but it seems like my magic moment is 200 grams. I'm going to add about 700 grams of water. I'm going to give it a good stir. I'm going to make sure it gets really good and mixed in. All right, and I'm also going to add the sugar to this at this moment, and then I'm going to continue stirring it. So I'm clearing it so that I can make sure that I get my 112 grams of sugar in. I'm going to give that a good stir. I am going to add flour. And I am using King Arthur's bread flour. I'm just using it straight out of here. All right. And I'm going to be adding 1,000 grams. I'm going to go ahead and put my salt in. I'm going to be adding 24 grams of salt. And I'm going to go ahead and mix that in with the flour, and I'm not going to mix it yet anywhere else. I don't want anything to happen to my sourdough. I don't want it falling, so I just feel like mixing in the salt just like you would with any kind of yeast is a good idea. Okay, now I'm going to add 40 grams of my olive oil. Now it's time to stir it all up. Okay, I'm just going to mix it in together. And it's probably going to be a little bit watery, but I'm going to knead it a little bit and get it into a dough ball. Okay. I can tell that this is still a little bit too wet, so I'm going to get a little bit more flour and just sprinkle it over the top. All right, so what I'm going to do now is spread a little bit of flour out on my surface. I'm going to add a good bit of flour because it still looks a little bit wet. Okay. Before I put it into the final bowl to rise. And again, it's going to be different every day, kind of depending on your weather or whatever climate you've got going on inside your house. I'm thinking this is not bad. I'm liking that. Okay, then I'm going to cover it. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of saran wrap over it. And I like to spray the inside of the plastic wrap so that it comes off easier. If it wants to rise above that, it doesn't stick, and it kind of allows it. So I do it a little loose, and sometimes I'll put 2 on just to make sure that it stays nice and moist. Okay, now I'm going to put it aside, and I'll be back in a bit. Now that our dough has finished its bulk rise, it's time to shape the loaves. Gently turn the dough out onto a lightly floured surface, being careful not to deflate all those beautiful air pockets you've worked so hard to create. I like to pat it into a rough rectangle first, which makes it easier to divide evenly. Using a sharp knife or bench scraper, cut the dough in half. Then, working with one piece at a time, shape each half into a loaf. Don't worry about making it perfect. The goal here is to create a little surface tension while keeping the dough light and airy. As you roll and tuck the dough into shape, you'll start to see it transform into a beautiful loaf. Place each loaf seam side down into a prepared loaf pan. Once both loaves are tucked into their pans, cover them lightly and let them rise for about 3 hours. Depending on the temperature of your kitchen, it could be a little shorter or a little longer. What you're looking for is dough that has risen to about 1 inch below the rim of the pan. At that point, it's ready for the oven. About an hour before you're ready to bake, go ahead and preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. A fully preheated oven is one of the secrets to getting a beautiful rise and a golden crust. Bake for 45 to 55 minutes or until the tops are deeply golden brown. If you like to use a thermometer, the internal temperature should reach about 204 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the sweet spot for a fully baked sourdough loaf. As tempting as it is to slice into fresh bread right away, this next step is important. Remove the loaves from the oven, carefully turn them out of the pans, and place them on a cooling rack. Let them cool for at least 1 hour before slicing. During this time, the crumb continues to set, giving you that perfect texture inside. Then all that's left to do is slice, butter, and enjoy a loaf of homemade sourdough bread that's well worth the wait. There's nothing quite like the smell of fresh bread coming out of the oven. I hope this recipe inspires you to slow down, gather around the table, and make something homemade for the people you love. Until next time, I'm Stacy Lynn Harris, bringing the garden, the kitchen, and the great outdoors together. Follow along for more recipes, and I'll see you soon.